talk to you about two things, I think, today. So the first one is going to be our onions. We're going to pull them and going to talk a little bit about curing them and getting them ready for storage. And then the second topic is going to be succession planting, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But how do you know when your onions are ready, you might be asking? And the way to tell is that the tops start to lay down. And throughout the garden, all of them have laid down. They're starting to dry up, the tops a little bit. And so we're going to pull them out. And once we get them out of the ground, I'm just going to find a sunny spot here in the garden and lay them out, not bunched up, but you want to lay them singly. And I'm going to leave them for a couple of days and let them cure for a little bit. And then after the 2 days, we want to make sure the roots are pretty dry, and then we're going to move them to a shady spot and let them sit there for 2 weeks and hopefully keep grasshoppers, birds, whatever away from them. If you don't have a shady spot, you can put them inside a garage, but you want a lot of air movement around them so that they can dry. Before you put them up for storage for long term, the outer skin will get really dry. You cut off the tops, you trim up the root, and then you can put them for long storage. That means putting them in a dark, dry area. And like this one, when I cut the top off of this one, we're going to see kind of a hole in the onion, and I'll know to use this one first because it has sprouted its top here, and that will keep moisture into the onion, and so that's something that we'll probably just use. We'll keep on the counter and use up early that way. So let's go ahead and just start. You want to be careful and just pull them out. You don't want to pull the top of them off because that's not a good thing. Pull those apart. They're not too bad size. Pretty happy with these. Considering this is the first year we've ever had onions work, I'm really happy with what we're getting. Just move these over to the sun. This is probably the sunniest spot of the garden, so I'm just going to lay them out here for the next couple of days. And I talked about cutting the tops of them off, and that's because, as you can see, the grasshoppers are eating the tops of these. But if you don't have that problem, you can leave the tops on and braid them and hang them, but I don't have enough tops to do that with. In these boxes, I think over there and over with the raspberry plants, I also planted some shallots and garlic. And they're the same thing. The tops are going to fall over. The garlic is going to get, all the outer edges are going to dry around them. You can dig around it to see how big the bulb is. I've never done garlic before, so this will be a new experience for us as well. But we're going to pull those and cure them the same way that we do the onions. Onions don't want to store wet. If they store wet, they're going to go moldy and they're not going to be any use. And so you want to dry them. So again, we're going to lay them out here for a couple of days in the bright sun and let them start drying. The roots, we want to make sure that these get really, see how they're really flimsy now? We want them to be bristly like a brush. And so we're going to let those dry out, and then and the sun will do that. You want to stop watering a couple of days prior to pulling the onions. It just helps with curing them. And so after the 2 days of drying them in the sun, we're going to move them into the shade, and they will sit there in a cool spot with a lot of air movement around them for about 2 weeks. And then once that's done, then we'll cut everything off and put them into storage in a dark place. Again, you want some movement, so in a mesh net or a box that has holes in it that air can go through it. And then we'll use them throughout the winter. A lot of them will get used earlier because we'll be making some salsa and yummy stuff. So, all right, let's move on to succession planting. So there are 4 ways to do that. And the first one is well, not the first, but one of the steps is that you can plant, you can stagger your planting. So where Utah is a short season, about 169 days, I think, is our entire growth season. And so the cool weather plants, if you want to get a little more bang for your buck, you could plant a row. Let's say we plant a row of lettuce, and then 2 weeks later we'll plant another row, and then 2 weeks later we'll plant another row, and that's called staggering. And that way your seeds are going to propagate at different times, and then you're going to have different maturity dates, and so you'll be harvesting more and not everything all at once. We did everything all at once because, again, it gets really hot very quickly here. Another method is to plant, say, our peas. We plant our peas. They're a cool weather crop, and we know that beans are a warm weather crop. They both like the same type of soil, so, and they would use the same trellis to grow on. So you could grow your peas, pull those out, and then plant your beans where they were, and you'll have those 2 seasons going on right there. Another way of succession planting is what we've done throughout the garden, and that is our companion planting. We'll get different things growing at the same time, and they help with the soil, but they have different maturity dates. And so we're going to, like for instance, we've got a bunch of cucumbers that are coming on, and the beets are below them. Filling the box, the beets are going to be harvested in about a month, and the cucumbers are going to keep going all summer. The last method is what we're going to be doing, and that is you're going to rotate your crops. So if you watch one of our first videos, we did onions with lettuce. We've got carrots and radishes, and there was spinach in here and rapini. Those went really quickly, and so I used those to fill in with the summer squash. And so I pulled all of the spinach, put the summer squash in, and in these boxes that we're pulling out, I'm going to replant lettuce, radishes, rapini, and spinach again, because it's going to hopefully start getting cooler one of these days. So as the weather cools, the seeds will have time to start propagating, and then once that weather temperature drops down a little bit, hopefully September, October, our lettuces and everything will be into full swing, and we can have an amazing lettuce crop again. We were talking the other night how spoiled we are with our garden crops. I went to the store and bought a head of romaine lettuce, and started making me this salad to use up some of the cucumbers and the tomatoes that we've been pulling off, and the salad was terrible. It was really bitter, and it made me just really grateful for what we're growing in our own backyard. So that wraps it up for this video. If you like what you see, please subscribe, leave us your comments. We love to hear from you. If you have any garden questions that you want answered, we'll do our best. Just put those into the comments and we'll respond. Thanks for joining us here at the Bountiful Farmhouse.